for this room, please use the microphone. So there's a microphone on each bench.
So opening opposition team, can you put the mic in the middle so that people at DOI can? Yeah.
You can start with your.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the current situation, in a lot of countries, the unemployment rate is very, very high. And we believe that to tackle this problem, we have to create a lot of employment for the all citizens. And we believe that the government is the only actor who can act to create the employment. And to do so, we have to say that the government contracts should buy the locally manufactured goods and services, and that's why we are very proud to propose this motion. So, in my speech, before moving on to my arguments, I'd like to define some vague words of this motion. This House means all developed market countries, and by taking this proposal, if the government have to do some services, or they have to buy some goods, like if they have to create architecture or something like that, they will use the local, domestic companies. They will not ask for the foreign companies to come in and to help them. And this is our model here. So having said that, let me move on to our substantive matter. Firstly, I'd like to explain how the reason why we have to force the government to take this proposal. And secondly, I'd like to explain how this proposal will create jobs in advanced countries. And thirdly, my partner will explain how this proposal is beneficial for developing countries. So firstly, let me explain about the reasons of taking this proposal. We believe that the government is the actor who have to think about their own citizens' benefits. They have to prioritize their own citizens rather than the other countries' people. And why is that? Because they, of course, as everybody knows, they are the representative of the countries. They are chosen by their citizens. And that is why the role of the government is to protect their own citizens and maximize their happiness, not the foreign peoples. And however, in the status quo, that kind of thing is not, the government is ignoring that. They do not ask their own domestic companies, but they ask the foreign companies to come in to help them. And because of that situation, because of that, there are a lot of people who are unemployed, even though they are own citizens of that country. We believe that this means that the government is ignoring the system of the democracy, ignoring their role, that they ignoring their duty to maximize the happiness of their citizens. And that's why we believe that we should take this proposal. So having said that, let me move on to the practical things, how this proposal will be benefit for the people in the advanced countries. As I have said again and again, in the current situation, the unemployment rate is very, very high. The reason of that is the economic crisis happened worldwide, and each government might have done a lot of effort by themselves, and but that is not working well enough in the current situation. And there is a lot of people who lost their jobs, and who are in hunger, or who are not able to go to schools, and etc., etc. That is a situation in the current in the status quo. And however, by taking this proposal, what can we do? It is clear that the employment will be a lot of created, because the government will have to use their domestic services, domestic goods to do for what they want to do. Like for example, if they want to build some buildings, they have to ask for the domestic companies, and for even such kind of one activities, a lot of people will be involved in that kind of things. Like if we take the example of the architecture, there will be people who will be there will be a technical supporter. Who knows well about architecture, and they have to. There will be people. There will be architects who will think about how to construct the building, and there will be the people who will traffic things from other places, and there will be actual workers who will build that buildings. And like this, by taking this proposal, many employment will be created. Don't you think so?
No, explain to me why a foreign company cannot fulfill this objective.
Foreign company will not be able to fulfill these things, because the foreign company, what they are what they are doing is that they are employing the other foreigners and other foreigners. That means the people who getting the profit is the foreigners. That's why what she has said is not true. So, as I have explained, by taking this proposal, many employment will be created, and by the government activities. And we believe that this is a very important point for the government to do. Why? Because, as I said before, the government is the only actors who can think about the whole citizen's benefit, and who do not seek the profit. Without seeking the profit, who can think about the benefit of the other people. And for all these reasons, we are very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Leader of Opposition.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, member of the House. And today we talk about whether should the government to only use the local contract to stimulate the economy. And firstly, before I move to my constructive part, I have several rebuttals to make. Actually, according to the statement made by our Prime Minister, your policy, actually what I want to say, is not the best way to decrease the high rate of unemployment. And it's not really solve the problem. It actually creates a lot of the extra problem and made a lot of the serious residual effect. Our policy is not to use this policy to stimulate the local economy and decrease the high rate of employment. We should use other methods, use some alternative method, like government can build some public construction or infrastructure, and we can hire more workers. But on the quality issue, we should base on the quality oriented rather than the local oriented. And also, actually, your policy, the effects of your policy is very harmful and also irreversible. And we firmly believe your policy actually is to achieve a very short-term interest and sacrifice a long-term interest. What is short-term? Short-term interest is that in a very short time being, you can achieve some achievement, like everybody say, the government already solved the problem of unemployment, but the long-term benefit is to concern about the security or the safety of the whole public. And then I move to my constructive part. And firstly, I want to give you a very clear explanation about what is the government contract. The government contract is actually a give only the government authorized the some rights to by only to a certain company or corporation which sign a contract with the government, and those corporation are local company. And what is the biggest characteristic of your policy or the local government contract? Actually, is the exceptionalism. And then I will answer a question: what are the main contents of the government's contract? Actually, it mainly includes two parts. The first one is the official use. It includes some maybe a computer or the car used by the agency of the government. Or also another very important part is the civilian use, including some house or basic infrastructure. And then I'll answer a question: why your policy is actually very problematic. As I said before in my rebuttal parts, your policy is totally local orientated rather than the quality orientated. Why the quality is very important to the whole society? It's not only come from the ethics of the moral. It's concerned about the resources for government rights. According to a famous philosopher, according to a very famous French philosopher, Rousseau, his very famous saying of the people's sovereignty. Actually, there's a lot of people in this country, so the government cannot guarantee everybody can govern the country. So the people's pass their rights to the government. So that's the reason why the government should shoulder the responsibility of every citizen's safety and interest. And that's the reason why the government should guarantee the quality of the government contract. And then why the government cannot control, why the government cannot guarantee the quality. It's concerned about two main factors. The first is the scope of competition, and the second one is the concern about the laziness. And think about if a city only has one concrete factory, and so because of your policy, the government can only buy the concrete from this factory, no matter it's good or not, it's good or bad. Think about if you use those concrete to build a house for our people, and what will be the consequence and the aftermath of your policy? Think about it. Actually, there is an example in the Shanghai happened last year, and everybody from the Chinese mainland knows that there is a new constructed building, and which is just finished and then collapsed. And fortunately, there is nobody living in this building. And think about if there are a lot of people going to this building and work and live, what is the consequence? There's a lot of hundreds and thousands alive will be lost just for such a policy. Go.
So are you saying that all domestically manufactured goods are bad quality? Why are you lack so much? You don't have confidence in our domestically.
Actually, it's not about confidence. We actually, as a government, we hope that our goods is very dependable. We hope everything is good. But the fact we should judge the things by the fact rather than some confidence of a moral ideology things. This is not right. The only principle to judge is good, right right, good or bad or not. It's the quality. The second one is a concern about the laziness. Actually, why laziness? Think about also taking the concrete factory as an example. If there's only one factory in this city, there's no competition anymore. The factory no longer has the motivation to advance their technology. There is no any competence, or also the price is very high. What I want to say is that actually the money from the government is from the taxpayer. The government should reduce the cost, and also my partner will further elaborate this point. And all in all, what I want to say is that it concerns about the whole society's long-term interest. We cannot allow such a policy passed. Thank you very much. It's very honored to oppose the motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The governments are sustained by the student vote, student trust. However, what government do is just bribe other countries' companies, and they just benefit on other countries, not on students. So we would like to protect the own domestic students' rights more than others, and we would like to make more flourish industry in the domestics. So we beg to propose this motion. First, I'd like to rebuttal for the opposition. Today, I have two refutations. Firstly, they say that they have alternative way, extra way to use our students as a labor, like the National Construction Program. So it's enough, but it's not true. If we can use the all students' budget, all government's budget for construction only towards on students is more beneficial, because if the government use the yen million on domestic and on another country's company, but after taking this plan, government can use 2 million yen on domestic students. It's more beneficial. It can make more high labor rate. So we think that our plan can rather achieve the student happiness and the student job rate. The second is he said is the government role is protect the student interest and safety. Yes, it's true. Our plan can fulfill this government duty, because firstly, government can protect student interest by providing a job, or by you consuming the student's goods and service. So we plan can achieve this point. And second is the quality and safety. Today they say that the quality is bad, so it's not beneficial for the student, but it's not true. Firstly, thinking about the advanced country like Japan or US or China or Korea, such the product quality is very high, so they are no harmful. And the second case is the developing countries case. It's true that the quality is not good firstly, but gradually the monopolized another company go away, so the monopolized will end, so the domestic competition will start. So student wants to more get high quality products in the low price, so that we can make more safety goods in the domestic, and we can flourish the new industry in the domestic, so it's more better than them. So I'd like to move on to our point.
Ma'am,
yes.
Please watch out the policies. The policies are local contracts rather than the domestic.
Yes, we say that local, it means that domestic, because if we make new blade, we should use in that prefecture, we use the domestic company, and we construct the new blade by help by using such the prefecture's company. So we mean that the local is domestic. And today we say that what is the government role and what is the benefit from the foreign and advanced country. My partner say that the constructing case, so I'd like to explain in more detail. The construction program or dam program, bridge program, and textbook, making textbook, or the housing program, and nursery care or child care, it's such kind of service and goods are all used by government. What happened? For example, the textbook case, the government make the elementary school, high school textbook by the local company. They use the domestic paper industry and domestic writing industry, and they use the domestic trading industry. Like that, around the textbook industry, all company are domestic, all company are local, so we can make more worker and around such industry, so we can provide more job opportunity for the advanced country. We know that the America's case, 10% are employed. In Japan, the 3 or 5 are employed. In another country like Greece or such country is more highly employed. So we need this plan at now to make job opportunity and support the students' life, because if students can get enough income, they can start their life again without fear, and they can consume their income to another industry in the domestic country. So we can make the consumption suffer on the domestic. It's very beneficial for the student and company and the industry. So I'd like to move on to my point. My point is how a developing country can get benefit from the plan. The status quo, the developing country are just exploited by the advanced countries' company. For example, the French or China go to the African developing country, and they make the water program, they make the pipeline. So, and after that, such plans are conducted by skilled person from the French or Chinese, because they are just a profit seeker, and they are aimed to get profit from the other country. So they don't have an intention. They don't have an incentive to develop or push advanced in the developing country. So they don't pass the know-how, or they don't make any successor in the developing country. And after that, they say that, oh, I help you, so you should share some water for me. Like that, the developing countries are just exploited by the advanced country. But after taking this plan, the developing country, firstly, they are struggling. It's become a hard time, but they gradually learn the know-how, and they gradually make a competition. So it's more beneficial for the bring up in the developing countries industry. And so we back to propose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last speech from the opening house.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the House. Today, as the opposition side, we strongly oppose the motion that the government should buy locally manufactured goods and services. Before I move on to my construction speech, I will first give out 2 rebuttals. The first is about the last speaker mentioned something about we should buy products produced by the local companies because we have to have confidence on them, and these companies they will bear the people's benefit in mind, and they will not produce any shoddy goods. But I want to tell you the fact is all companies are profit-oriented. That is to say, all companies' goal is to win profit, not to consider the people's citizens' benefit. government will. But in this case, why should our government choose those those local companies? But well, this concern about the question that the Prime Minister failed to provide us that the estimate standard of those companies. That is to say, no, thank you. That is to say, as she didn't mention that, so we think that the government would randomly choose those domestic companies, no matter how bad their products are and how low quality their products are, which will harm the citizens' profit eventually. And we know that choosing the products only by the confidence of the local company, that is really irrational choice. Because the rational standard of choosing the product is the quality of the product, not where it produced, not where is it produced or where does it come from. That is to say that is exactly my partner's point. That is, quality really matters, not the geographic reason. No, thank you. And about the second rebuttal is that she thinks buying products from the local company will boom the employment market. But here is the question: when foreign companies also come into your place, they will also hire local workers. That is to say, also increase the employment rate locally. So her arguments just doesn't stand. Here comes to my construction speech. Later, please. Mainly 2 points. The first point is the further illustration of my partner's point, quality. And my point is that is the significant negative influence of passing the motion. Why is that? Because once our government contracts to buy the locally manufactured goods and services, that is to say that there is a steady relationship between the domestic companies and the government. But that means the government trusts the local companies. But where does that trust come from? We cannot see any steady standard from that. And we don't know whether those companies can produce qualified goods or not. But in their motion, they just want to buy things from them, no matter how bad their quality are. And because you didn't mention anything about the estimate standard of those companies. So we think that the government, this choice of government is totally irrational. And as for they already signed a contract, that means the Prime Minister also didn't mention about the supervision problem. When we lack the supervision system, we cannot say that whether the products are qualified or not, because the government buy it randomly. And once we have the local company sign the contract with the government, the local company will feel kind of insurance. Having kind of insurance, that is to say, whether how shabby goods they are producing, the government will buy their products eventually. That is to say, they will gain benefits, they will gain profits, so they don't have to worry about the selling of their products, because the government will pay for their products. Which is to say, when our government, for example, if our government is going to build bridges, roads, and schools, and they buy those poor qualified things from those companies, that is to harm our citizens' profits, citizens' benefits, because those things are made of poor quality, and no one can make sure whether they can stand long or not. And the role of the government is to guarantee the citizens' benefit. And in this case, the government should buy products according to the quality, according to the level of good quality, no matter where does those companies come from. And to the government, and actually, government is offering protection umbrella for those local companies if we pass this motion, because our government is using the tax from our citizens to buy things that is not qualified enough. Although some people may argue that some domestic markets or some domestic companies are qualified enough, but as we lack the solid estimated standard of those quality of those products, so we don't know whether all of them are qualified or not. So this is a major concern of this motion. And then now I move on. My next argument is that the negative influence on markets. We know that we know that once we introduce the market system into our place, that is to say, all companies are trying to make their products better and better. In this way, who will benefit? Our citizens. That is to say, our citizens can buy better goods because the companies are trying to improve their products. But once we pass this motion, then our government won't enter any bid or submit a tender in this system. Our government pointed a company or a manufacturer company. Our citizens can only use the products or service from that company. And so what about the other companies' products or service? They may be better. Our citizens may benefit more from those companies. But now our citizens cannot enjoy this kind of privilege anymore because our government contracted those locally manufactured goods and services. So based on the main points, one is the role of government is to provide the benefits of our citizens, not to provide the benefits of those local companies. And so we think that if we are lack of supervision system and we are lack of the solid estimate standard, then we cannot guarantee the profits of our citizens. And about my second point is the negative influence on markets, which will cause our citizens to have less choice, to harm their profits in the end. So based on, we are very proud to oppose.
Thank you very much. I'd like to call upon the first speaker from the closing house.
Gentlemen, let me remind we start again. Sorry, use the microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you again, today we're talking about the developing countries. The workers working very hard, but they only earn very little. Why? Because first, the governments do not protect their own civilians' working right. They only buy foreign products because they think that they have good qualities. But they didn't have good qualities just from the very beginning. They need time to develop. And for the local business, now they didn't compete with these global companies on the same fair ground. So that is why we're going to use the government to buy these local businesses products, and then it will in turn to promote our own local economies, and our worker situation will improve, and so on. I will prove that in my later argument. And now let me just first deliver a few rebuttals. The first is that they say that the governments will randomly choose between the local providers, but we're saying that no, the government is only want to limit the resources to the local companies, but there are still many local providers, and the government knows that he's going to choose the one which provides the best quality. How come the government will want to choose the one that provides a very bad quality thing? And I'm going to prove to you later that these companies will definitely improve in the future. They will become as competitive as global companies if we carry out this policy. Yes.
What if there is only one provider in town?
If there's only one provider in town, just like in the case of the Shanghai building, let's take that for example. This architect company, they build this building, but it collapsed. Then what will happen later to this provider if there's only one architect in Shanghai? Then this company is done. Like, no one will ever going to buy the products, and the government will definitely end contract with them. Then there will be new companies, there will be new architect agencies coming up. They will want to be more competitive, proving to the governments that they are the one who deserve the government to contract with them to buy the product. So they indeed will become more more competitive. And the case you brought up is only an accident, and they are ruining their future. Okay, and they also the second rebuttal is that they're saying that yes, the government is using the tax money from the public. Yeah, exactly. Then why are we buying foreign products? If these monies come from the tax from the public, then why are we using this money to make the other countries richer while our workers can barely live from hand to mouth? And now I'm going to give my and I want to answer the previous BOI, which the other side talk about like why not those foreign invested companies, why not we make contract with them? The problem is that for these international businesses, for every they take the added value high part of that, so they earn a lot, while the local workers, the labor intensive workers, they work hard but they only earn very little. Just think about the the Indonesian laborers making Nike sneakers. They only earn like one day for like $1 or $2. That is exploitation, and I'm going to tell you that if we don't carry out our policy, we're going to continue to be exploited by them. Right? I have two extensions. The first is that we want to make local business as competitive as the global business to end this exploitation by the global companies. And the second is that by making contract with these local companies, the government can build in the brand confidence of these companies, that in turn the consumers will have more confidence in it and will buy more products. My first extension is that currently we see that for the international business and local business, they don't compete on the same ground. The international business, they have a great supply chain, they buy things in a very low cost, they have great manufacturers, they give low pay to the labor intensive people, so they will be more competitive than these local business who is just a startup company. They have not yet reached the level as competitive as these global companies. And what will happen later? These companies, if they'll compete on the unfair ground. So if we do not take this, the government do not use the taxpayers' money to give these locally just startup company a chance, then the international companies will continue to take the most valuable part and give local workers only a little bit of money, and then we can never develop our own industry that is as competitive as foreign companies. Then we will continue to be exploited by foreign companies. This country's future is dim. It will never have a good economy to sustain. And the second, and also, I'm going to prove that these companies signing a contract with the government, they will definitely improve in the future, is that the government, by signing contracts with them, they actually make these companies has a great exposure to the public. The public will know about these small or medium-sized local business, and the locals will wonder, and the locals will have great attention on them. So if they have any mistake, just like the Shanghai case, then this company is done. Do you think any company runner that has a clear mind will ever do something like this? No. If it's a contract with the government, they will do it very carefully and only want to provide the best thing. My second argument is that government can build in more confidence and encourage consumers also to buy from the local companies. Just look at the South Korean examples. Before they don't have any competitive companies, but the government only uses computers from Samsung and cars from the South Korean industries. So that in turn the citizens feel like, yeah, these companies, we can buy their products. They are maybe as good as the foreign products. So they have more consumers, they can produce more goods, and then in turn, they're becoming as competitive as the foreign thing. That is how South Korea get developed and economic prosperity. So that is why we argue, proudly propose.
of government, member of opposition.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Basically, what the government side is promoting today is called local protectionism. And what they are trying to do is isolate every country, shut the door to the outside world, and only buy the commodities from your own companies. And follow their logic, all the multinational companies should shut down, and countries should stop their exports and imports, and we should all close our door and develop our own. We believe that it is not the situation in the real world. And let's look at what the government side's argument. First of all, from the opening government, they say that why we want to do this is that the government should prioritize their own citizens, and the role of government is to offer protection to its own citizens. We say, yes, we admit that, but if you really want to protect the citizens, if you really want to protect your citizens and make their life better, you should improve your social welfare system. You should start investing in the infrastructure. There's no link why we shouldn't buy commodities from from foreign companies. You never explain why this will cause the problem you have raised, and why we cannot provide better life to our citizens. And second, you mentioned that the problem you want to solve is the problem of unemployment, and only local government and only local companies can serve that goal. But actually, you never explain why a foreign company never explains can never reach this goal, which I raised in my POI, and you never offered us any concrete examples. But actually, in today's real world, the fact is that the free flow of the resources actually benefit all the citizens. And in fact, I don't think the employment problem is even relevant to today's debate. And third is that you want to maintain the local competition's competitiveness only by those the manufactured goods from those companies. But however, follow your logic. There's even no competition because the government will choose local companies in the very first place. There's no other competitors in this case. So actually, I don't see why those companies can increase their competitiveness. If you really want to raise your competitiveness, you should always choose the best. And this will stimulate those local companies to further develop and try their best to meet with the best. And therefore, the local economy can be developed. And the stance from our side is very clear, because we say that from our upper house, the only criteria for the governments to direct their contract is based on the quality. It's not location. So your argument is basically based on assumption, because the government they assume that government can always find the best commodities within this region, within this country. But we say that the resources in this world is never equally divided. That's the problem is that some regions are rich in resources A, and another region is rich in resources B. So if there's a trade between two different regions, actually this rate flow of resources can benefit both countries. And move on to my extension part. My extension is that your policy go against the trend of the economic globalization and go against the free flow of the resources. We say why, in today's world, the United Nations and many countries, developing countries, developed countries, they are promoting the globalization of economy, because the globalization of economy can actually benefit all the countries. For developing countries, developed countries can invest their best technology, can service to those developed countries and actually help them to develop their economy. And some developing countries, they're rich in certain kind of resources. And if we allow those countries to have a trade, to allow those free flow of the resources to happen, actually we can benefit the people from both sides. And for example, the United States, people from the United States, they are very fan of commodities made of China because the price is relatively low and the quality is relatively better. So actually people like this. They can benefit people, and I don't see why you want to stop them from happening. And follow your logic. Whenever a government wants to do something, they should sign contract with a local company. They believe that a local company can better serve the services. They will never let a foreign company to step in. So suddenly, the problem of unemployment is solved, and people are happier, and the country can develop. So actually, this is not the case. It's not a fact, because what we are doing is trying to promote economic globalization. We don't want to shut the door to the outside world. Because we see which country shut the door and only buy their local commodities is North Korea. It's country like North Korea. It's country like China before reform and opening up. So we see that if a country really wants to develop, they should always choose the best commodities. We should judge on the quality, not the location. And second, why it is so important to guarantee the flow of information, flow of resources, because we believe that it is actually a two-way trade. The same time we buy something from foreign companies, we also sell something to for the foreign government. And first of all, for the material resources, as I have mentioned in my example, some countries, some regions are rich in certain resources, other countries rich in other resources. If there's a trade, actually they can both benefit from this trade. And second, for human resources, like country, for example, country like Philippines, their paler industry is service industry, and they mainly export their human resources to other countries to serve as maids. If we suddenly stop this, those people in Philippines will suffer, because you shut their door to the outside world. You're not gonna let the flow of the resources happen. So we believe that if we really want to go with the trend of economic globalization, want to guarantee the flow of resources, we should never pass this policy. So we are very proud to. Thank you.
Alright, I'd like to welcome the last speaker from the government.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I move on to the clashes of today's debate, I would like to do some rebuttal to the previous speaker. Well, first, we're going to tell you, actually the previous speaker really distorted the model and what we're saying from our government side. Why? First, she mentioned that what the government doing is try to isolate ourselves with the international world. We want to shut down all the multinational companies. Actually, no, we never say so in the whole debate. So what they're doing is just distorting our government argument. And we didn't say that we want to stop importing. All we maintain in this whole debate is just that because our local company, they're actually standing on a very unfair ground because they're exploited by the more powerful multinational companies. So that's why we want the government to take this role, and we believe only government could have this ability to do so. Only the government could really, to carry out this policy, to try to give a fair ground for the local companies. Later, and my second rebuttal is, the previous speaker said, if we carry out this policy, there will be no competition. But we're going to tell you, if you don't carry out this policy, actually, what the competition you're stimulating, actually, you're only going to stimulate the foreign industries and not the local companies. And what the government should do is to protect our citizens, our people. And this is what the opposition also agree with us. But however, what they're saying is going to make the situation even worse, because all they do could only stimulate the foreign country, the foreign company that is already taking control. And I also want to maintain that actually the reason why local company couldn't be as competitive as the foreign company right now is not because we're lazy or something. It's because we don't have a fair ground. Actually, that's the status quo, and that's what the whole problem arises. And my second, my third rebuttal is, the previous speaker said our policy is just go against globalization and free flow. But we're going to actually, what we're doing is to help the local company to go with globalization. Why? Because I already told you the local company, they're already at stake. They're standing on a very unfair ground, and we need the government to help them, because once the government help them this way, only by this way, they could have the possibility, they could have the opportunity to grow stronger, because they have the help from the government. And once the government have contract with them and they get stronger, they could really become more competitive. They could become competitive enough to go into the international stage. And so this is why we believe our policy is actually really trying to help local company to go with the globalization. Yes.
What if the local company is a very strong company and a hegemonic company, and they always exploit others? Do they need still such a government contract?
Well, actually, I've already told you why we company want to choose this is because we want to help the company that are really in need. Our government are not stupid. We wouldn't choose a company that is already very powerful enough. All we want to do, the target is the poor company that is on an unfair foundation, at an unfair ground. So I think we've already stated very clearly. Okay. So now I want to move on to my clashes. Actually, after listening to the whole debate, I just want to conclude my clashes in one question. Which one really benefits the citizens? Okay, I think this is the main issue that both sides are arguing. Well, the opposition side keeps saying that, the local company, the product they produce are really bad quality. But we're going to tell you, actually our government, usually there will be many different localized company producing a certain good. So our government is not stupid. We could choose, okay? And our government side keep maintaining that we want to help those companies because it's very unfair to them. It's not because they're lazy. It's because they're at a very unfair ground. So even though they really want to work hard, but because they don't have the fair ground, so that they just fail. We already told you. Actually, please late. No. Okay, we want to tell you, we want to reaffirm the situation. The status quo is that because now the country, they're exploited by many powerful multinational companies, and actually those companies, because they're very famous and they could use the economic scale by producing a lot of goods at a very, very low price. But however, contrary to the local company, because they are not famous enough, they don't have such a strong market a strong consumption market to support the product they produce. So this is why, at economically aspect, they're really at a very disadvantaged part.
One more POI.
No. So this is the unfair ground we're stating, and and second, our government side also tell you that. Oh, okay. The opposition side keeps saying that why can't the foreign company fulfill like job improvement or bring more money? But we're going to tell actually foreign country they only care about their own self-interest. So they really produce and manufacture things locally, but actually they will actually take away the high value added part. So all the productivity that could be left in locally is all the parts that has very low value added. So all the employers domestically, the money they could earn is actually very little because the foreign company they actually taking all the high value added part away. So taking this policy, we believe we could solve this problem. And our government also tell you that because local companies actually means that the people most cases the people in the company will hire local people, and we will hire local people. So more local people will be hired because the companies know that the government will buy goods from them. So they will have more confidence to hire more employees, and so that we can really solve the job problem, like our opening government has told you. And this way, there will be more job opportunity, and the salary will increase, and people will live more happier. So this is why we government side are really proud to propose. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Governor Wood. I'd like to introduce the last speaker of this debate, opposition.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. Firstly, I have to highlight that the whole proposition side actually undermine the function of the foreign companies, and also they are undermining the importance of the globalization and also the importance of free market. And firstly, it goes to the rebuttal. The first rebuttal is that their logic is like this. They think that once the government invests only to the local companies, then what will be the direct result is that then the unemployment rate will be decreased. This is basically the Prime Minister's problem that should come up with and want to be solved by their solution. However, there are many flaws that lies in the whole link. Firstly, there are many other factors that actually influence the unemployment rate. They naively assume that once we invest in the local companies, then the rate will be decreased. However, there are many other factors like the students major, maybe the major do not fit the market, and also the people, they are not capable enough to get a job. So for these kind of factors, they cannot solve the problem as they come up with, which is the unemployment rate. And then we think that for people who want to choose, want to work in the foreign companies, if we pass the policy, which is that we invest in the local companies, then it will do no good to this kind of people. So basically, this link is not valid. And then secondly, you mentioned that because the local companies relatively weaker compared with the foreign companies, so that once we exclude those competitors from the whole debate, so that from the whole competition, then with the local companies will benefit from the competition. However, this side did not give us any clear example why their case actually stands. It's like my son is very bad at studying because he cannot catch up with his classmates, so that I just drop all his classmates out because he's relatively weaker. So I do not see any clear value that lies in your case. Closing.
protectionism is essential in the startup company, because if we don't do that, then we will never have a competitive company as the international company. Economy will always suffer.
Get your meaning. I do not think this will benefit the long-term interest of the local companies. We think that the best way for them is to improve their capability. Ultimately, we think that this is self-cheating for the local companies, because the truth is that they are weaker compared with the other companies. But what you are gonna do is to just keep them outside of the competition, and we do not think that this is good for the local companies. Sorry. Then, moving on to the conclusion part. Firstly, the first clash into this debate. The first clash into this debate is that whether the policy will serve the ultimate goal of solving the unemployment rate, which is mentioned by the Prime Minister. We think that, as I have already mentioned, there are many other factors that are actually influence the unemployment rate. But they just assume that once we invest only in the local companies, then the unemployment rate will be increased. However, I have already mentioned in my rebuttal part that there are many other factors that are influencing the unemployment rate, and they do not give us a very clear link why it will do good to the local companies. And then, because they want to change the status quo, which that the local company, the domestic companies, they have already have business trade with the foreign companies. So if they want to change the status quo, they have to come up with a clear harm. Why the foreign which have to be provided by the foreign companies. However, we see that actually the foreign companies, they are providing many jobs to the domestic workers. We think that if we want to ultimately destroy the problem of unemployment, we cannot exclude the foreign companies which are already providing many jobs for the domestic workers. And they say that because we wanna increase the unemployment rate, so that we just exclude the foreign companies. And I did not see any link in the statement. Yes.
But to make the high quality products, to be chosen by government, they start make competition. So in advanced country, the unemployment.
Yeah, I get your meaning. However, we think that the best way for the individual is to give them the right to choose which kind of company they want to work in. It's not that the government side is trying to deprive them the right to choose. You are trying to deprive them their right to work in the foreign companies. And we do not think the government is so wise to choose for the individual workers. I'm sorry. And we think that the way to solve the unemployment is not simply by saying that you exclude the foreign companies into the competition. We think that the best way to solve it is to make the whole, firstly to make the workers more capable in the competition, and also we have to make the companies that especially the domestic companies be more competitive in the whole case. It's not that you just let them be self-cheating, that it's okay, you just exclude their competitors. We do not think that this is the case. Sorry, no POI anymore. Then second is the impact of the policy. Their logic is that because the foreign companies is more strong, then we want to protect the local companies, then we will just stop investing in. However, my partner have already mentioned to you that because the ultimate goal for the government is to improve them. We want to improve their long-term, and we want to benefit their long-term interests. We think that it's better for them to have these foreign competitors. Then ultimately they can learn from these competitors, and then they can be more competitive. And also we think that they can be benefited from the free market. If these domestic companies, they do not obey the rule of the free market, then the companies in the other countries, then they will not have any trade with the domestic companies. Then they cannot sell goods to those other companies.